Jeremy Roenick is in. Is Duncan Keith the next Blackhawks Hall of Famer? Connor Bedard is going home to face the Canucks for the first time. And why is Luke Richardson constantly changing the lines? We'll discuss all that and more on today's CHGO Blackhawks. Happy Wednesday. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. I'm Jay Zawoski with Greg Boyson and Mario Tirabassi. Nate's here running the show. We're glad you're with us. Thanks for being here. Do us a favor and smash that like button. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page as well. Podcast listeners, like, subscribe, follow, whatever your favorite app calls for. And please take a few seconds to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Got a big show for you today. We are going to hear from Luke Richardson. We are going to hear from Connor Bedard ahead of the Blackhawks road trip to Seattle and Vancouver. But first, we've got some Hall of Fame talk to get to.
Yep, sure do. It's already time to think about the next Hall of Fame class now that the old Hall of Fame class is old news.
Hell yeah. If you guys, you weirdos in the chat, can start telling us who the number one draft pick is going to be while the draft is going on next year, then we could talk about the Hall of Fame the day after.
We got to do everything we can to get Connor Bedard's cousin.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not next year's draft. That's the year after.
Can we pre-draft his unborn son?
I always said that the Cubs should sign the child of Nomar Garciaparra and Mia Hamm just like out of the womb.
Yeah.
Just like life contract. This kid will be a good athlete. You can
Should
pretty
have
much
pretty
count
good
on that.
genetics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's got better Achilles tendons than his old
And
man.
groin. Ooh, remember that when Nomar's groin fell off?
Oof.
Is there a bobblehead of that? Nate brought his toothless Duncan Keith
Nice.
bobblehead in for today's show.
Perfect.
Is there a groinless Nomar Garciaparra bobblehead?
Writhing on the wriggly grass. Yeah.
Just its
I'm going to go on a
just
limb and
its upper
say
body.
all bobbleheads are groinless.
Fair
I
enough.
mean, sure. Yeah.
Now with writhing action.
all their muscles and tendons are in the neck area to
Yeah,
keep their heads
good point.
bobbling.
Good
That's
point.
true.
All right, so let's start the show talking about the Hall of Fame here. So Duncan Keith is among some of the eligible first-timers, for next year. So eligible for 2025 for the first time. Some of the notable ones here shared by NHL Network: Duncan Keith, Carey Price, Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara, and Ryan Getzlaf. For me, with Duncan Keith, a 3-time Cup champion, 2 Norris trophies, 2 Olympic gold medals, 106 regular season goals, 540 regular season assists, 10 playoff goals, 38 playoff assists, and a 2015 Conn Smythe winner. It's an absolute no-brainer. Duncan Keith is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think when you think of the idea of a first ballot guy or gal, when you have a resume like that, it's there's no question. I mean, when you look at the Hockey Hall of Fame, a lot of what they look at, a lot of the big like checklist things is Stanley Cups, individual awards. They take into consideration international play, so Olympic golds, World Championship appearances, things like that. Like Duncan Keith checks all of it, and not only was he a 3-time Cup champ, he was, depending on who you talk to, he was the heartbeat of those teams, and they don't win maybe any of them if he doesn't play the way that he did in the prime of his career. 2-time Norris Trophy winner, so twice with a 4-year gap in between, which is actually pretty impressive for a defenseman. Twice he was awarded the Best Defenseman of the Year award. Was a key part of 2 Olympic gold medals for Team Canada. Yeah, I mean, it's just he's an absolute icon within the Chicago Blackhawks, and yeah, it's a first ballot thing. And the other thing with Hall of Famers is how long were you considered top 10, top 5 at your position? And I'd say for a decade, like a solid decade, Duncan Keith was one of the best 8 to 10 defensemen in the league, and that's pretty darn special.
I mean, there was a run there too during those Cup, the Cup 2010 to 2015, where I think he was the guy. And
Right.
I know we're probably a little bit biased here, of course, but we talk a lot of the time about Alex Vlasic and him being set and forget. You could set and forget Duncan Keith to be a Norris Trophy level defenseman every second of the game.
Yeah.
I fail to really think of during that prime a Duncan Keith mistake that led to anything that he was not able to recover from. I think my biggest criticism with him was the slap passes that he would always try.
Right.
But okay.
Yeah.
The team had the ability to score anyway. That was never much of a challenge for them.
Right.
It was a frustration, but my God, like he was a guy you would do playoff series previews, and if you were trying to look for talking points, Duncan Keith barely even registered because it was just when he's on the ice, he is taking away half the ice surface. And other teams knew that, and other coaches would say that, that when number 2's out there, forget it. That side of the ice is done. So you better find another way. And then most often, that other side was taken up by Brent Seabrook.
Right.
So good luck there, too.
Yeah, no, there's little doubt that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't see how anybody could look at his resume and go, nah, I'm not going to vote for him this year. I'm going to let him sweat it out a couple of years. And when I look at a Hall of Famer, in my eyes, if I'm voting for a Hall of Famer, it's somebody who was excelled at his position for the entirety of his career. Not a guy that had like 6 really good years and then 6 kind of meh years or just inconsistency, but at the end of a 20-year career, the numbers look great, but really wasn't a difference maker for a lot of those years. Duncan Keith, 2019-20 at 36, still averaged 24 minutes. 23-25 at age 37. The only season in his entire career he averaged less than 23 minutes was his year in Edmonton. That doesn't even count. It didn't even exist. Where he had 1944 as a 38-year-old.
Right.
So you can't tell me that if anybody says, he's a Hall of Famer, but don't let him in the first ballot.
Come on.
Why?
I mean, look,
Did he yell at you in a post-game scrum like Connor Bedard?
Yeah, I mean, he had a drop-off, but he went from outstanding top of the league to just very good.
Right.
Like, the drop-off was still elite.
17 seasons in the NHL.
Yeah.
Nobody who plays that long is going to be at their top peak form for their entire career, unless you're Sidney Crosby.
Right.
But the numbers were, and those numbers towards the end of his Blackhawks career, not as great as they were earlier, but those teams declined. They weren't as good. When you look at his stats, you could be like, I wonder when Jeremy Colleton took over. There it is.
Yeah, right.
The minus 29 in 17-18. But think of the 2018-19 Blackhawks, not the greatest team in the world. He was a plus 13 on that team. He was a difference maker his entire career. And he was a guy that took some time. He played 2 full seasons in the AHL before getting here. His first 2 seasons in the NHL were not great. There were a lot of growing pains there. So keep that in mind as we are going through this slew of top defensive prospects. Keep that in mind when you see Artem Levshunov make a bad play in Rockford in his 9th professional game, that it took 5 professional seasons before Duncan Keith became Duncan Keith. And then he was the standard of the gold standard for defensemen for over a decade in this league.
Well, I think it's unquestioned that across our board that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But when you look at the rest of the first time eligible players, you named a couple of them there, Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara, Carey Price, Ryan Getzlav. Like, I think what happens with the Hall of Fame is that a lot of times everyone gets excited about the first eligible names, first ballot eligible names, and like who is a first ballot Hall of Famer eligible, and who's a lock and things like that. And I think what we've seen in the last few seasons or few years with the Hall of Fame is that they're trying to kind of like walk back some of the omissions. I think we saw it with Roenick.
Yeah,
he was a very long time considered one of the top players that was snubbed from the Hall of Fame. Goalies in general, had, 2 years
like
ago
Vernon
and
Brasso.
Right, exactly.
Third guy part of that too, but yeah.
So now you're seeing goalies start to get in a little bit more. Obviously they've been lacking in the recognition of the women's game as well. So I look at it and they only bring in so many people per year. So I wonder how Keith stacks up against some of these other first ballot people. Like Zdeno Chara, I think, doesn't have the hardware that Keith does, but he has even more longevity and was just as dominant for a very long time. And now, being a 6'9" mammoth helps, but also like his resume is, I would say, I'd say first ballot.
I agree.
He's
a captain of a Stanley Cup champion, the Boston Bruins. That helps. Playing in the East his entire career helps.
Mm-hmm.
And being on those really good Boston teams. But again, he's another guy that played forever and played at a high level. And some people may not have like really gotten familiar with Zdeno Chara until he got to Boston.
Right.
But I mean, he was played.
He was awesome in Ottawa.
Yeah, he was great in Ottawa. He was, didn't play a ton of games with the Islanders. He was kind of up and down for the first couple years, but then but he still had 9 years in the NHL before he even got to Boston. And I even forget that he played a year in Washington and then returned to the Islanders after Boston.
At the end of his career. Yeah.
But and for a guy that was that big and could be that special at that size, you don't see that very often.
Right.
Usually when guys are 6'9", 6'7", whatever, they're John Scott or Matt Rempe. They're attractions. They're sideshows. Go out there and punch somebody in the face.
Right.
They're not considered one of the best players at their position.
Yeah.
But he was different. You talk about, the smaller players that have overcome the odds, but being that big usually was never, like a path for success in the NHL either. And he was able to do that and do it for a long time. I have no problem if Zdeno Chara is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Surpassed Chris Chelios that final season he played in the Islanders.
Yep. And that
surpassed
was,
Chris Chelios for the most games played by any defenseman.
Yeah, and he's running marathons for crying out loud.
Yeah,
the guy is a cyborg.
He's
a freak of
physical
nature.
freak. It's crazy.
Him and Duncan Keith share that in common. They're freaks of nature.
The conditioning is crazy.
Was he traded by what's his face? Mulberry?
Mike Milbury?
Yes.
Yeah.
There should be a Hall of Fame wing for guys traded from the Islanders by Mike Milbury.
Luongo was one of them.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
there's so
many.
many.
He was traded by the Islanders with a first-round pick that turned out to be Jason Spezza for Bill Muckalt. Oh, and Bill Muckalt, sorry. To the Islanders centers for Alexei Yashin. That didn't work out very well.
No.
Yeah, the Ole Jokinen, Roberto Luongo for Mark Parrish and Oleg Kavasha. Good one.
Yeah, that didn't work.
There's
either.
a lot of these really bad Mike Milbury moves.
That's why he wasn't a GM. Well, he was GM way too much longer than he should have been, but yeah.
Yeah, with Chara, it's just like you said, like guys that big usually just become sideshows, but he had the skill to not only be a really effective defenseman, but it's somebody that played that role of just like, you're not going to mess with anybody when Chara is on the ice. That's why Brand Marchand for a very, very, very long time was an unchecked like peen on the ice, because a lot of times it was you're gonna Brad Marchand's gonna jab you in the balls and you're gonna go over there and say something, and then 6'9" Slovakian wrestling trained Zdeno Chara is going to come over, and what are you going to do? What do you say to that? Like nothing. Like it's like he just shut down the physicality, the physical side of things when he was on the ice. It's just one of those players that comes around like once in a great while.
Plus, he's really good friends with Marian Hossa, and that's the only.
That's all I need to know.
That's a
all
Hall of
I
Fame
need.
quality too.
If Marian Hossa likes you, you belong in the Hall of Fame.
Does that include us?
I don't think
Does
he
he
likes
like us?
Damn it. All right, well.
He tolerated us for an
Fair
hour.
enough, fair enough. All
We
right,
had a good
fine.
conversation.
All right, more of this coming up next on CHGO Blackhawks. But a reminder that we're sponsored by Chicago Sports Network, the new home of the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox games. CHSN will broadcast more than 300 live games per year across the Hawks, Bulls, and Sox, and will feature a full lineup of original Chicago-focused sports content. They're also Chicago-based, Chicago-built, and Chicago to the core.
Chicago packaged.
And they're bringing it to every corner of Chicago, across our 77 neighborhoods and beyond. It's CHSN. Chicago comes first. Visit chsn.com for more info on how to watch the Bulls, Hawks, and Sox games all season long.
And after each game, you can find us here,
That's right.
pre and post.
And on Xfinity.
And yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that later. Hey, speaking of Xfinity and stuff, did you know that ComEd can help businesses save money by becoming more energy efficient, Greg?
You know, as I get older, I only have a certain capacity in my brain, and I looked up Hall of Fame hockey stats today, and I totally forgot.
You had to
about
delete
that.
some files.
Yeah, never heard of that before.
Well, just so you know, the energy efficiency program from ComEd can help find up to 35% in energy savings.
Holy smokes, that's a lot of savings. So what would a business owner like myself have to do to acquire such savings?
Well, business owners like yourself just need to sign up for a free facility assessment at comed.com/biz.
I wonder why more businesses aren't doing something so freaking easy.
Maybe because they forgot the website when they were looking up Hockey Hall of Fame stats.
You know, I can't remember that they do this, but I will always remember their website to do this. comed.com/biz. Comed/com.
Try again.
You know what I mean.
ComEd.com/biz. Yeah, that's
the
right.
one.
That's the one. Terms and conditions do apply. Offers are subject to change. Actual savings will vary by customer's energy usage and rate. And the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is funded in compliance with state law.
/biz.
And if you overheard Greg and don't know what he's talking about, we are indeed on Xfinity.
Yes.
So you can turn on your Xfinity box.
It's not as hard as it seems.
And look us right up there, and we are going to be there on channel
4074.
4074.
Our pals at DNVR and PHLY have their
Also
own
up
channels
there.
there too. So
Is it not that difficult to get on Xfinity? I
We're
mean,
also
apparently it just happens.
Yeah,
we're
you
also
just do
on
it.
Roku and Samsung.
Samsung
And
TVs
I
and
believe there's some more stuff
and-
coming soon.
Yeah.
More to come.
We
And
are-
all your favorite podcast apps.
You guys are going to need restraining orders against us.
really, we're
What was that
everywhere.
channel again?
40.
ComEd.com/biz. Oh, I'm sorry. 4074.
John Hayden, Nicholas Baudin. That's how you remember.
Wow.
Ooh.
There you go.
Yeah,
Ice House
there you go.
Legends.
Yikes. So as for the rest of these notable,
These
Chara's
jabronis.
in, Keith is in. I think Carey Price is a no-brainer first ballot.
I don't know if he's no-brainer first ballot, but I think playing
No
him
cups, I know.
He's
but
one of those guys that I'm like, if he had the exact same career but played in Minnesota,
Exactly.
would,
well,
would,
Minnesota maybe,
would
but
everyone
yeah.
fawn over him the way that they do?
If he was an Arizona Coyote for his career,
Well, Arizona would probably still have a team. They would have had a lot more success with him.
but yeah, like great start to his career, but like great overall numbers. Went from being like 6-7 years of being the best goalie in the league to 6 or 7 years of being undependable because he's not healthy. A lot of injury problems, which are
Mhm.
not necessarily one's fault, but like, and again, yes, if he didn't playing in Montreal is probably going to put him in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot.
I mean, he won a Hart Trophy.
He is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I don't argue that. He was one of the best goalies in his generation.
But slam dunk first ballot guy.
That's where I think it might get the water might get murky. He deserves to be in there, but with all these other names and all these other things, I don't think he deserves to be a first ballot.
I'll bet you a pizza. He's first ballot.
The being
I'll
in
buy a pizza for you guys.
Well, you have to
If
buy.
I'm wrong.
But if you're wrong, remember you got to buy 2 pizzas because Mario's gluten free.
I am that confident.
Okay.
I will do that. Those
okay.
are the odds.
Sure.
All right. Timestamp it, Nate.
Yeah, I mean that's how I feel too with Price, is that like playing in Montreal helped, but also yes, if you win an MVP award as a goalie, like that is in the modern day and age, that is something special. And the other factors here, didn't win a cup but was rock solid for Team Canada in the 2014 Olympics. I looked this up. He played 5 games in the 2014 Olympics. Did I say 2017? 2014 Olympics. 5 games, 5 wins, had a .972 save percentage and a .59 goals against. I didn't look up which teams he played because he might have, bum slayed some teams, but still at the Olympics.
He played Italy and Jamaica.
Okay. Well,
Jamaica's pretty good.
We Italians, we try and play hockey. But I and it's probably just my Blackhawks fandom, but someone who won 2 Stanley Cups to Price's 0, 2 Jennings trophies to Price's 1, and had a 2.45 career goals against average and a .918 career save percentage, one better than Carey Price, is Corey Crawford.
Yeah. When you put it that way, I bet you if you put those 2 numbers together and say they played in the same era, your average hockey fan would not guess the other guy was Corey Crawford.
I would say so. So that's the one thing, and that's the one thing why I'm just like, Price was really, really, really good. Best goalie on the planet for a while. But I think the longevity of the career and how the numbers pan out, like you were saying before, like some guys tail off, some guys are great their entire careers. I think that makes me kind of hesitate on the surefire first ballot.
And if you ask Canadians fans, the biggest reason they don't have a Stanley Cup is because of Chris Kreider.
Okay.
When he crashed in that Eastern
Right,
Conference
yeah.
final. Was
Yeah.
that 2014? Yeah, that was
Yeah.
2014.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was playing ridiculous. He was carrying that team on his back, and then Kreider drove hard to the net. Price got hurt, and that series was over.
So I don't think Corey Crawford being underrated takes anything away from Carey Price. What Crawford doesn't have that Price does is a Hart and a Vezina, right? Like those are individual awards. Where the Jennings, he splits one with Ray Emery and he splits one with Scott Darling. What was the other one?
No,
Ray
I think
Emery.
it was.
Yeah, Emery was one. Who was the other Jennings?
Was it with Leonard?
Maybe with Leonard. Yeah.
No, it wouldn't have been with Leonard.
Oh, regardless, that is
We only had some
I'll
way
look
to
it up.
confirm
that's
this.
a combo
Look it up.
award. And I mean, Corey Crawford carries the weight for most of those, obviously, but without a great backup, you don't win that trophy. And unfortunately, reputation does come into play for this. And thanks to new UMass broadcaster Pierre McGuire, his reputation took a hit because of that game he won against Tuukka Rask, where he gave up 5 glove hand goals. That hurt his reputation a little bit, and he kind of got that Chris Osgood passenger on the way on a really, really great team reputation, which is, we all know, is untrue.
We've already mentioned the name of the guy that he split the Jennings with.
Yes, he allowed the same amount of goals as Carey Price.
So Carey Price tied him. There you go.
Yeah.
Equally as good,
How
Okay,
about that?
not better.
Or goals per game.
fair enough. But the good news for Corey Crawford and Steve Larmer and other former Hawks is that all of a sudden, good old number 16 Eddie Olczyk is on the selection committee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how about
That is going to bode well for a lot
I
of
think
Blackhawks.
Steve Larmer is not going to have to wait very long. He's
I
gonna
don't
push
think
in
so.
there.
I think that Eddie O is going to slam the door shut and weld it shut until Steve Larmer's in Hall of Fame.
It's going to be amazing when Eric Daze gets in the Hall of Fame.
Sergei Krivokrazov. What the hell?
Yeah.
All right, so the other one, there's 2 more on this list. Joe Thornton, I think, for sure.
Someday.
Yeah.
Not first ballot, no.
You don't think?
He's
No.
14th all-time in points scored. That is
Because
significant.
he played for 63 years.
Well, I mean,
But is how do you hold that?
he's got a heart.
how do
he's
you
got a
hold that
Ross.
against the guy for being able to play in the
not
NHL?
everybody can be first ballot.
No, I know.
If Keith and Chara are first ballots, and then maybe Price, you can't. No. Yes, Hall of Famer. First ballot, no.
I don't think you can blame that. You can't hold a guy against his draft class though. Like, well, there's too many. Look, we all love Marian Hossa. If Marian Hossa's a first ballot Hall of Famer, Joe Thornton is a first ballot Hall of Famer. You have to kind of look at it in that context too.
Marian Hossa was a better player
than Joe Thornton.
Yes.
I don't know about
prime
that.
versus prime.
Yes, Marian Hossa was a better all-around player than Joe Thornton.
Are you using the term all around as an overall? Because all around, because overall, as far as prime skill, I might say Joe Thornton had the higher prime.
Joe Thornton was
prime
a better
skill,
playmaker. He had a
better
ton of assists.
better all around game. Yeah,
but
Hossa for sure.
Yes, Hossa was a better all-around player than Joe Thornton.
So someone look up Marian Hossa on Hockey Reference for me. I'm looking at the player similarity scores for Joe Thornton. Here are the Hall of Famers. The closest players to Joe Thornton are Marcel Dion, Steve Yzerman, Jerome McGinley, Marian Hossa, Jean Beliveau, Brett Hull, Joe Sakic, Brendan Shanahan. The other non-Hall of Famers on the list, ready?
Ryan Getzlaf,
Evgeny Malkin, and Patrick Kane. Future Hall of Famers. So every player on Joe Thornton's similarity score list is a Hall of Famer.
Well, you want to hear Hossa's list?
Hossa's has to be the same.
Here's Hossa's list.
Joe Thornton,
Brendan Shanahan, Mark Messier, Luc Robitaille, Daniel Alfredson, Pierre Turgeon, Jean Beliveau, Matt Sundin, Mike Badano, Stan Mikita, and Joe Thornton.
I rest my case.
So they're both first ballot Hall of Famers.
Congrats to both of them.
That's kind of my point.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, I don't know.
I think
Hossa was perfect for the Hawks. Like, he was exactly what they needed. But I think individual career, Thornton probably had a little bit better.
When those two guys faced each other in the Western Conference Finals, Joe Thornton was a freaking ghost.
That's because of Dave Bolin.
That was Dave Bolin's.
Then he needs to be in the Hall of Fame too.
Agreed. Dave Bolin for the Hall of Fame.
He's in my Hall of Fame.
It's still wild to me that Joe Thornton won the MVP in a season he was traded. He led the league in scoring and won the MVP in 05-06 and was traded from Boston to San Jose.
He's the only player to do that.
Still Sidney Crosby this year.
Was Mike Milbury the Bruins general manager that year too?
He might. He
just signed on. Let me do something real quick. Oh my God, you're fired.
He might have. Yeah. Yeah. I think out of the first year eligible players, I would say Keith and Chara and Thornton have the best cases for first ballot and
Keith, Chara,
in
Thornton.
The Hall. Yeah,
you think Thornton over Price?
I think so.
I would agree. Like, if it came down to like which we can only let one in on this first year, who would you rather? If it was up to me, Thornton or Price, it's Thornton.
I probably agree with that. However, I feel like because it's Canada, because it's the Canadians, because of the name, it's going to be Price. And I think if they do make someone sit, it will be Thornton of that group. I'm sorry, you cannot deny Chara and Keith.
No, I don't think you
there's
can.
There's no way.
No, I don't think you can.
As for the notable players not in, we're all teams.
We didn't talk about Ryan Getzlaf.
No, Ryan Getzlaf. He's one of those guys, like in 5 or 6 years on a weaker class, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure
not first ballot.
I'm not even sure Ryan Getzlaf is beyond Hall of Very Good, to be honest with you.
Let's play the game. Let's do the similarity scores real quick before we hit the break zone.
He won a cup, won a gold medal.
But look at those last 6 years of his career.
Yeah,
Nothing.
he definitely
now
fell off.
Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3.
Never won an individual award.
There's 4 Hall of Famers in a similarity scores: Ted Lindsay, Dale Hawerchuk, Bobby Clark, Frank Mihaljevic. Here are the guys not in the Hall of Fame: Jason Spezza, Rick Nash, Claude Giroux, Phil Kessel, Eric Stahl, Zach Parise. All those guys, to me, are Hall of the Very Good.
Yes, Hall of
borderline Hall of Famers, maybe eventual Hall of Famers if there's a thin year.
Ryan Getzlaf.
Kessel's a Hall of Famer.
Was there ever anybody during his career, and I know he played in a era of really good, talented centers, and that shouldn't be held against him, but was there anybody ever between the years 2010 and 2020 say, if I'm starting my franchise to win a Stanley Cup, I'm taking Ryan Getzlaf first?
No.
Nobody ever said that.
If Jonathan Toews is taken.
Yes, and Sidney Crosby
Crosby's taken.
And Joe Thornton is taken.
And Patrice Bergeron
is taken. If I
Then
had
I'll
the
take
ninth
Ryan
pick,
Getzlaf.
And Dave Boland's off the board.
like, it's
Yeah.
he's had a very good career, but I don't even know if he's a Hall of Famer. Definitely not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Not first
Shame on them
ballot.
for even putting him on that graphic.
Well, they got to get that Anaheim bump.
Yeah.
Yeah, big Anaheim bump.
All right, we got to hit the break zone again. We got a lot more to come. We're going to tie a bow on this Hall of Fame discussion and then get into the Hawks' upcoming West Coast road trip next on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.
Hey, we spend a lot of time talking about goals on this show. How are you tracking with the ones you set for your business earlier this year? Are you close? If not, do you know why you haven't hit them yet? Well, if you have year-end goals, Constant Content has what it takes to help you meet them faster. No matter how experienced you are with dealing with digital marketing, Constant Contact has the tools to make your marketing run smoother, sell more, raise more, and build more genuine relationships with your audience with Constant Contact's suite of digital marketing tools, all made to fast-track your success. You no longer need to struggle with expensive, slow, and unmeasurable approaches to marketing your business. Tap email marketing that helps you create and send the perfect email to every customer. Own the smartphone by adding texting to your marketing strategy. Connect with over 2 billion people on social media with an all-in-one tool for posting and sharing, and sell more online in less time with Constant Contact's powerful e-commerce tool. Get all the automation, integration, and reporting tools to get your marketing running seamlessly. Join the thousands of businesses and millions of people who trust Constant Contact with their marketing success. Time to put the go in your 2024 business goals with email, social, SMS, and customized marketing campaigns built for you in just a few clicks. Ready, set, go to ConstantContact.com/AllCity to start your free trial today. Go to ConstantContact.com/AllCity for your free trial.
And if you haven't noticed, over the last few weeks, people have been extra worked up and extra stressed out and extra frustrated and feeling somewhat extra hopeless. Well, when you're feeling that way, take a deep breath, put some hockey on the television, and choose chill. And when you choose chill, make the choice to reach for a nice cold Coors Light, because what you need is some mountain cold damn refreshment. And when those mountains turn blue on your Coors Light bottle or can, and I've seen cans that have the music waves. So sometimes it's the music waves that turn blue. They have like promotional different cans.
Oh,
sometimes,
interesting.
Coors Light. Whatever is blue,
Extra chill.
that means it's cold as the Rockies. So when you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. There it is. That sounds refreshing. Make the most out of the times that you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart right now by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. So some of these guys who are not in yet, this is the list that the NHL Network put out. Alexander McGillney, Rod Brindamore, Patrick Elias, Chris Osgood, and Jen Botterill. For those unfamiliar with Jen Botterill, 3-time Olympic gold medalist for Canada. The Brindamore one is interesting to me because if it's simply on the merits of a player, he to me is also in that hall of the very, very good. Like to me, Rod Brindamore was like Jeremy Roenick if you order him on Temu, right? Like he just was a very similar player, but not quite as good offensively.
Yeah.
Not quite as flashy, not quite as exciting. Maybe a little better defensively than Roenick was, but a lot of times that kind of gets thrown by the wayside.
Yeah.
But the coaching has been outstanding for him.
Yeah.
So I think the hope is he doesn't have to retire from coaching before he gets in.
Right.
I think it certainly helps his case, though.
If it was allowed, and from what I understand, the Hall of Fame doesn't combine coaching and playing careers. It's two separate things. If it did allow that, I think you would say, yeah, he was a really good player and he's been a really good coach. Like, there you go. No question about it. But yeah, I mean, I think he's one of those guys that as you kind of chip away at the players that were like no doubt for sure Hall of Famers, he starts to get into that like echelon of was like, yeah, I could squint really hard and see a Hall of Fame playing career there. If he wins the Stanley Cup as a coach at any point, I think you might kind of just be like, not technically combining his career, but yeah, we'll put him in as a coach, and he also was a really good player too, kind of like, wink, wink there. But he's a guy that I feel like a little bit more coaching success, I think, probably solidifies it, even if it is kind of a like gray area blending of two sides of hockey, the playing and the coaching.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan Moore was a real, like, I mean, you just look at him and you're like, yep. If you had no idea who Rod Brendan Moore was,
He's
and
a
you just
hockey
saw
player.
a picture, but like, that guy was a professional hockey player. Like, he was sandpaper, but had the grit and the energy. Obviously, had no problem using his face to block shots or absorb elbows or sticks.
It's the only person I know whose nose bends
his
3
nose
times.
is like on a perpendicular to the rest of his face. But that was the type of player he was. He was a fan favorite everywhere he was because he was that type of player, that warrior type of player. But he had some really good offensive years too. He had 4 or 5 years of over 30 goals, a couple of years over 60 assists. So, never had a 100-point season, but, he flirted with it a couple times. Great leader, nearly a point per game for his entire career, 21 seasons in the league. I mean, those are all things that are admirable, but I don't know if that gets you out of the Hall of Very Good and into the Hall of Fame. But you tuck your similarity scores.
Not a good case for him.
Not the greatest. There are some Hall of Famers, but they're all guys that played a long time ago, except for one, Norm Ullman, Alex Delvecchio, Johnny Busick, and Dino Cicerelli, and then the rest are
Dino sucks.
Yeah, that guy, Hall of Fame peen. Vincent
I'm in Peter
Damphousse,
North.
Jason Arnott, Ray Whitney, Pat Verbeek, Brad Richards, Shane Doan. Hall of Very Good.
Yeah.
Those guys that aren't in the Hall of Fame, are any of those guys ever getting in the Hall of Fame? Probably not.
Don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Where do you see a guy like Keith Tkachuk? You guys saw
I think
him,
Keith
him
Tkachuk's
play
Hall of
more
Famer.
than I did back in his day.
I think so.
And you got to imagine.
I think his sons are definitely helping it. No, that sound no. It sounds
Hall of Fame
silly.
Hall of Fame lineage.
It sounds silly, but the more that like Matthew and Brady do well in this league and become the stars that they are, more people are going to start paying attention to what Keith Tkachuk did.
It keeps that flame lit for him
Yes,
for sure.
And having Matthew and Brady go on the campaign trail for him isn't going to hurt either.
Well,
you could argue,
and Roenick did it in his speech too.
You could argue that as good as Matthew is, Keith might be better than Matthew
now, but I think when it's all said and done, Matthew's going to have the better career.
Well, it's tough though because of the eras. Like Keith Tkachuk played in the heart of the clutch and grab, Darian Hatcher, slow you down, stuck in mud hockey, and still scored 48, 54, 46, 41 in consecutive years. Like he was the premier power forward in an era of power forwards. He was absolutely dominant. And I remember when you would talk about the best U.S. forwards in the league, there was always the Roenick versus Tkachuk. Roenick was always a conversation. And actually, sometimes as a Hawk fan back in the day, you felt like you were on the losing end of that conversation because Tkachuk was putting up such massive goal totals in an era where nobody was putting up goal totals that big.
Yeah, the stat here from Paul Peduti from Daily Faceoff is that an era adjusted goal pace for Keith Tkachuk for his career is 39 goals per season for era adjusted. Like if you were to have a guy for his career now be like every year you'd pencil him in for 39, like that's pretty special.
That's a lot lower. See, he did have kind of a drop off later in his career.
Yeah, when you play as long as he did, but I mean, in his late mid 30s, he was still putting up over 20.
But from age 21 to age 31, here are the goal totals: 37, 38, 48, 54, 46, 41, 24 in 50 games, 39, 32, 44, 35, and 56, 39. Like, he was just absolutely the prototype power forward
in an era of prototype.
Yes,
power
like
forwards,
he would. I think 100%. As much as I hated the St. Louis Blues and I hated playing against Keith Tkachuk, that dude was an MFer. He was one of the baddest ass hockey players ever. And it's kind of funny now because he's become, because of the way like Matthew and Brady act around him, they kind of prank him, they kind of chirp him, and he's gotten a little portly in his day that he's become, people have forgotten how amazing of a hockey player Keith Tkachuk was.
Yeah.
I think it's a shame he's not already in.
If Eric Lindros is a Hall of Famer, Keith Tkachuk is a Hall of Famer.
Well, this again goes to the reputation thing. And you want to talk about injuries, like Eric Lindros was a concussion waiting to happen. And it's not a knock on him. It's just true. I feel like Eric Lindros never reached his full potential.
Philadelphia, New York, Toronto.
Correct. And was a hugely hyped.
Yes.
Like Bedard level hype coming out.
Well, he had the whole #1 overall pick not playing for Quebec. How'd that work out for you? He would win a Stanley Cup if he did. But then...
Would he have?
He would have been on the Colorado Avalanche.
But didn't they trade...
Okay, you swapped out Lindros for Peter Forsberg. I mean, you would have still done pretty well. I think they still win a cup with Eric Lindros on that team.
It's a fun what if.
He would have been a lot closer if he stayed than he ever was in Philadelphia. Yeah. But he played Philadelphia, New York, Toronto. Keith Tkachuk played Winnipeg, Arizona, St. Louis.
I got to say, now looking at the numbers, Lindros was over a point per game player in his 13 years.
I'm not saying Eric Lindros doesn't.
No, I know.
He does, but if he's there,
I underrated him as a playmaker, though, looking at his assist stats.
Yeah, he had John LeClaire to his left this whole time. And
Legion of Doom. Remberg.
Remberg. I almost said Desjardins. I was like, that's not right.
I mean, Lindros could have been a monster if he wasn't also a target. You know, in an era where putting your shoulder into a guy's jaw was
he was 6'4",
completely
240.
If he didn't,
and Scott Stevens was like, F that.
F that,
yeah. To the face.
If he didn't play in the same division
and your
as
jaw
Scott
is the same as anybody else's.
If he didn't play in the same division as Scott Stevens for all those years, his career probably would have been a lot better.
God, Scott Stevens was just...
He's a criminal.
Like, yeah. I mean, that guy... You take Jacob Trouba times 50 and then make him also an awesome defenseman.
Yeah. He makes Jacob Trouba look like Adam Boquist as far as like toughness goes.
As far as throwing your elbows.
He makes Jacob Trouba look like Lane Hudson. That's how that.
All right, we should probably start talking about the Hawks a little bit. We've got some good sound to share. We're running out of time to do so.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
Do us a favor before we do.
Right.
Please hit that like button for us. We would appreciate that. Continue the discussion in the chat. This stuff is always fun. I love this sort of stuff. Talking about the 90s, especially back when I was cool. But hit that like button for us and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube page as well. And a heads up, this week we're going to be giving away 3 pairs of tickets to the Shoresy Classic. That's on Tuesday at Allstate Arena. You're going to see the cast of Shoresy take on Blackhawks alumni. I saw Kyle Calder was on that list. Adam Burrish is on that list. A bunch of other names you're going to recognize as well. We'll be giving away a pair on our Discord, a pair on our Twitter, and we think we're going to do a pair on our Blue Sky. So if you're on Blue Sky, find a CHGO account, and we'll show you how to win. But that game is Tuesday. Please don't enter unless you can win, but we'll give you instructions on how we're going to do
attend.
That. Unless you can attend, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we do have some news from practice. I feel like Luke Richardson kind of got to all of it. So why don't we play Luke right now, and then we'll react on the other side of it. He starts here giving a bit of an injury update on Alec Martinez.
What is the situation with Martinez? Just like Yeah, that's his first full practice, and so far looks good, but we'll have to see how he does, in fields tonight after a little bit of contact and battle, and he's a possibility, but we're not sure if he'll play tomorrow or not. We'll probably have to make sure he's doing okay in the morning.
What have you been missing with him on the ice?
He's just got a little calmness, and there's a big presence there, and it's not just on the ice, obviously, verbally, he's not a yeller, screamer, talks a lot. He just, when he does say something, it's meaningful. He's got some direct, verbal things that are just kind of, relaxes people, direct for everybody, and he's been there. So everybody respects what he says. So we're just kind of missing that. Not that we don't have a lot of it, but just a little bit more helps.
Is Brossois going on the trip?
No, I don't think he's coming on the trip yet, but it's definitely progressing. And like I said, we're probably going slower with a big goalie, making sure that everything's healing properly and not rushing that, and definitely taking steps. So,
what went into the line changes?
Just trying to get things that are going to work every night. Some nights, depending on the team we're playing, a bigger, faster team, to another team that's maybe they're like a quick checking team in Seattle, and they're not built the same as Dallas or even like a Vancouver. It's kind of like got guys like Miller and stuff. So we're going to just try and build our lines and our lineup to who we're playing, and until something like jumps out at us that it's going to stick, and we've seen that for a while, and then sometimes we need help on a different line or spread it out on the road when we can't have last change, and I think that's what we're looking at here.
Any advice for Connor returning home on Saturday?
Just enjoy it. I think he's been really good when we go out west. He seems to have that jump, and I know he's played in a lot with Team Canada's and the World Juniors and under 18s and that, so he's had that before in Canada and done really well, and we've seen that from him, whether it be a big national game against a team where he's matched up against a McDavid or a Crosby, and he seems to really rise and enjoy those occasions. So we're hoping for him to do that again, not just for the team but for himself, just to have a fun time and enjoy it and do well.
When a guy gets to see his family for the first time for playing a game in his hometown, does that kind of change his routine, change his mindset when you think of like a time for yourself or someone?
Yeah, no, it is a special time when you're first time back to your hometown, and you want to do well. There's going to be lots of people there wishing you well before, and there's going to be lots of people in the stands and to see after, and you want to be proud and show your best, and there's always that little extra jump in your stride. It probably should always be there, I guess, right at this level, but there just seems to be a little bit more, and so we're just hoping Connor has a good game and feels good about himself going into that game.
Taylor Hall, it looks like is playing well, and the numbers show that he's playing well, but doesn't have a ton to show for it. Would you assess how he's done so
like
well?
Even in the overtime goal, I don't think they gave him an assist on it, and his stick maybe didn't touch the puck, but he was strong and had a great strong defensive play to break up that puck for us to go the other way. So there's so many other things that we see in his game, and it just even his strength and practice on the puck, like it's starting to really come back, and you can see he's starting to feel it. So we're happy for that, and I think he knows that. And a guy that's been around this long, everybody loves to have your numbers flashing positively, but in the standings. But you know what? As long as you're playing well and you're confident in that, and at this point in his career, you should be. I think we're happy with his play, and the longer you do that, the numbers are going to start trickling in there.
He's one of the team leaders in terms of zone entries, particularly with possession. How helpful is he in terms of getting it through the neutral zone?
Yeah, no, that's good. And he's strong. He's strong on the puck. There's times where you think he might get squeezed off or checked, and he somehow drags everything in with him because he can handle the puck. He's got great feet. When it gets knocked off his stick into his feet, and he kind of holds on to it even longer that way. So that's helpful because that's an area that we want to make sure we really clean up. We've had a couple turnovers that have been costly in games, and there's been a couple even last game that cost us a penalty once in the third period, even on the power play, a little bit sloppy when that's a chance for us to really put the game away and give up 2-on-1s the other way. So the more guys that are getting it in deep, whether it be skating it in or just chipping it to themselves, it's helpful, and it becomes contagious, just like it does when you don't do the right thing.
I know you said that part of the line changes are opponent specific, Is any of getting Bedard more on lock baked into that equation?
I think on the road, we just want to have some good balance, and I think that's what my initial reason is. And then there's other reasons. Just some guys play well, and the line gets going for a while, and then sometimes it just goes stagnant. So just change it up. And I thought he had some good chemistry before with Kurashev last year at times, and even early in the season with Tavo. So let's try it again. And sometimes you come back to it, and it clicks even easier because they had a try or two, and they've been on the power play once or twice together, but maybe the third time, sometimes they've been talking about things. Hey, last time this didn't work well, or this did work well. They can kind of work at building themselves up a little bit. So I think it's not so much longevity in keeping them together for a long period of time at one run, but maybe over the course of the season, different spells that they are together. By the end of the season, things are looking really good, or we know maybe that just doesn't work.
You looking to free him up offensively by moving to the wing?
Yeah, and there's going to be times where maybe he's going really well and someone isn't. Maybe I throw him out there on an offensive zone face-off on another line. And we've done that before, and it depends if we're behind in the game or up in the game. So there's different variables, but he's a guy that if he's on his game, he can be very dangerous and explosive. So we want to keep our eye on that.
That's Luke Richardson. By the way, that was not a fart. That was my thumb moving on my microphone.
Sure.
And I was actually looking at my
it was.
video recording, and I saw that it picked it up.
Mhm.
Like, all right, noted.
I was in the
Don't move my thumb.
I was in the fallout zone. It was definitely not his thumb.
I was
No, that's
standing
just
right
my
behind
natural
you.
stench. Yeah. It's funny. There's a bit of a theme today. We're going to play Connor Bedard here in a second. They don't seem to make as much as the Lions as we do.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like whoever I'm out there with, and you'll see here in a second, like Connor Bedard got kind of like, oh God, we're talking about the Lions again. And Luke's just saying, hey, we're trying to catch a spark, and sometimes the spark goes out and you got to try something new. And,
See, I get that, but I think at some point it becomes overkill trying to play matchups every game, because there is something to be said for guys getting used to playing with the same guys on their line and getting used to where to expect those teammates. And I think if you playing with a guy like Nick Foligno is different than playing with a guy like Teuvo Teravainen, is different than playing with a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi. Like it's you want to be able to have a little bit of that chemistry built to where you on a consistent basis where guys are going to be, who you can trust defensively, and even with the defensive pairs too. Like those guys need to be able to trust how the forwards are going to work together with their defensive assignments and responsibilities and things like that as well. So I get playing the matchups. I'm on board with that in theory, but I think at some point you have to. And maybe it's more likely that it's a symptom of this team having so many new faces, and having a lot of turnover, and the more long-standing players that you're expecting to rely on over the next few years aren't here yet. But I would like there to be a few lines and a few pairs that go untouched because it's working. And I think we've talked about it before. I go back to Foligno, Bedard, Teravainen worked really well.
Yep.
It cooled off a bit, but it still I think was the most effective forward line that Bedard has played on this season. Now with Kurashev and Teravainen, he's got a little success too. So we'll see.
Yeah, and for the record, I agree with you. We talked about it last week. I think continuity is a good thing. My point was just like they don't seem to think it matters.
Right, yeah.
Or at least they say it doesn't. Here, by the way, here were the lines today. Bedard, Kurashev, Teravainen, Foligno, Hall, Bertuzzi, Dickinson, Donato, Anderson, Reichel, Maroon, Smith. Your D pairs were Martinez and Jones, Vlasic and Murphy, Kaiser and Brody. So if these are what stays, and if Martinez does go tomorrow against Seattle, that means Nolan Allen sits for the first time this year. I don't love that. That will be, if it happens, a big topic of our pregame show tomorrow at 8:30.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a permanent move, I don't like it, but sometimes having a young kid who's in his first year, maybe take one game back to, watch and compute what the coaches have been telling him isn't the worst idea in the world.
Right.
He's never been through an entire NHL grind of a season, so possibly a break every once in a while isn't the worst idea for a game.
And Brody's had 2 okay games since
Brody's
coming back in
been
the
fine.
lineup, so let's see if he can continue that, give him some time because he is the veteran, so on and so forth.
Yeah, like whatever was talked to Brody when he got out of the lineup, it seems to have
helped,
and he's been better. So, a game out of the lineup for a young kid like Nolan Allen isn't the worst idea. Now, if he's going to be sitting 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row, I'm not a fan of that. You might also send him back down to Rockford and bring Isaac Phillips back up to sit. But we'll see. As far as the forward lines changing, we sat here in the summer and we're all like, oh, this is going to be great. Luke Richardson can change his lineup to play the matchups. That's what he's like. I don't mind this move here because when you look at Seattle, they aren't a very big team. I get having Foligno with Bedard against the Wild because that's a bigger team. Just SOBs on the forecheck. Seattle, I looked at their roster. Excuse me. Half of their roster is 6 feet and under. So they don't have that big, heavy team that you would have had against Dallas. So I don't mind trying to find, ways you can exploit that lineup. And I also agree with you, Mario, that like when you find a line that works, stick with it. Problem is they really haven't found a line that works yet.
That fourth line.
Well, it's back together. Reichel is back with Maroon and Smith. That line works. You can, go with that. Like, any line that Dickinson's on works defensively. But I don't mind switching Foligno around when the team they play dictates it. When you have a bigger, heavier team, put him up there with Bedard. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Help him get through the checking and get to the dirty areas. When you have a smaller team that doesn't rely on physicality like Seattle, then Tavo, Kurashev, Bedard makes sense. But we'll see how it goes. I would like some sort of continuity, but I'm not going to get uptight about every time there's a line change made because they haven't found that right recipe yet.
Yeah.
Now, if you've got a line that's like on fire for 6-7 games in a row and then you change it just for the sake of changing, okay, I don't like that. But, keep throwing stuff at the wall until you find a line where you go, that is my line for the rest of the year. We haven't gotten to that point yet, besides the fourth line.
All right, that's going to do it for the televised portion of the show. If you want to watch us on TV, Comcast 4074, Samsung channel 2348, Roku channel 260. We're available all those places with many, many more to come. If you're listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, we're going to hear from Connor Bedard here in a moment. But we want to tell you about becoming a diehard at ALLCHGO.com. There are many reasons to do so. Primarily, you get a free shirt or hat when you sign up. You get access to all of our great written content, including Pigs and Puck, the Rebuild Report, Morning Chirps, Blackhawks Beat, all that great stuff. 20% of all of our merch at store.allcitynetwork.com. 20% of our events, takeovers, everything. It's a bunch of savings. It helps keep us going. And access to that Discord will also get you access to the Shoresy tickets. It's going to be one of the ways you're going to be able to win tickets to the Shoresy Classic coming up on Tuesday. So make sure you become a diehard at allchgo.com. This week for the Blackhawks Beat, I'm going to be pretty much penning a love letter to Jeremy Roenick, and watching him talk during that ceremony kind of rekindled everything I felt about him as a player, and seeing a guy up there with humility and those sort of things was good to see. So make sure you become a diehard. It really, really helps us out. And it really is a great value for you if you take advantage of it, right? You use that savings on the merch, you attend a couple events, it basically pays for itself with 2 events and some merch discounts. So certainly do that. And the Discord is a great place to be. The Hawks Discord, very calm. Everyone in there is very kind. some of the Bears one can get a little rowdy from time to time, as you'd expect. But our Blackhawks Discord, very friendly. And, of course, you'll get priority on our Mailbag Monday show. So last time, ALLCHGO.com is the website. Navigate over to that Diehards tab and become a diehard today. We would love to have you as part of our ever-growing community. All right, let's hear from Connor Bedard before we wrap the show up. Here he is.
What do you think about all the line changes? What do you think is a combination that helps you get on track?
I don't know. You guys have asked this the last 10 days, so whatever line we play with, we're just gonna go play and try to do well.
But it seems like the coaches are trying to find a combination that best suits you. Do you think it's a big deal about nothing?
Yeah, that's their job, obviously. Try to find what works best for our group, all 4 lines. So they're doing that, and we just go out and we play with different guys or same guys or whatever.
How much are you looking forward to heading home on this trip?
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, I was disappointed last year I didn't get to go on that trip, so looking forward to it. My family's excited, so it should be good.
Any idea the number of tickets for family, friends, and supporters that you might have to come up with?
It's not crazy, but I'll be paying to play for a night, so but it'll be good. Have some people there.
Do you know what your schedule is going to be? Spending time with friends and family? Are you going to kind of be pulled in all directions? Spend time with them.
I think we might have a day off there, or maybe practice or something. So I'll probably just go home and just hang out and have dinner at home, and then go back to the hotel and same as any other game day on the Saturday.
Any emotions that go with this, like coming home now as a professional? It's like coming full circle.
Not really emotions, I don't think. Obviously, it'll be good just to have family and stuff there, but in the end, it's another game.
All right, Connor Bedard, he was a man of few words today.
So goes that storyline.
Yeah, I mean, it's
how many family members are going to be there? I don't know, a lot. Isn't it emotional coming back to play in Vancouver? It's just a game.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Connor.
My lunch is getting cold. Let's go.
Yeah. Good talk. Good talk.
I got to get RPM on the plane.
Good story, by the way, with Connor in Chicago Magazine this week with some cool pictures.
Yeah.
Inspired by Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So check that out. Written by Wayne Drez, who's been in Chicago media forever. Nothing truly new in there, but just a little bit of a different kind of insights and stuff from Connor, which is always good to hear. All right. Coming up next on CHGO Sports, we've got the White Sox show at 4. Bulls pregame at 6, and then they've got their postgame. So stick around, allchgo.com and our YouTube page all day.
Bulls win.
Let's hope.
I hope.
We'll talk to everybody tomorrow at 8:30. Hawks Kraken pregame. Then we've got the postgame after the game. So we'll talk to you then on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.